going on, guys? Greg here. Today I'm going to show you how to do a battery relocation to your trunk on a MK4 Supra. I know there's a couple other videos out there already with a detailed install guide. I just wanted to take a few moments to show you guys how exactly I have mine set up. I know everyone's is a little bit different. I tried to do mine as cost effectively as possible, but also make it look as clean as possible. I know there's some companies out there that make boxes and kits for it that are $400, $500, $600. I wanted to spend at most $350 for everything absolutely needed: the battery, the brackets, the wiring. So I was able to do that, and I'm gonna show you guys how exactly I did that. So if we go to the back of the car, I have the whole trunk pulled out, so I can just give you a detailed look of what exactly I did. I'm in the middle of doing a subwoofer upgrade, so don't mind that. But this really pertains to any Supra or any other car for that matter. But for the MK4 Supra, what I did, as you can see, everything is already done. A little bit more cleaning up could be done, but everything works, and I want to make sure everything works first before I go ahead and clean up anything more. So for this setup, you'll have to get rid of your spare tire, which I have over there. And for my car, I have big tires on it, 18-inch wheels and all that, so putting a spare on there probably might not be a good idea anyway, and I rarely drive this car, so I didn't need that. So if you're okay with deleting your spare tire, then that's perfectly fine. So we have more room for other goodies. So I decided to go with an Odyssey Extreme PC925 battery. You can see there. It's super compact, it's very lightweight, and it doesn't take up a lot of space in the trunk, which is a good thing. So I have here a bracket that just bolt into the floorboard here. So I have some nuts and bolts that hold this bracket in to the bottom of the floor, and that holds it in nice and tight. The battery I got also online. I'll put all the link to the purchase in the description below. So simply set up, I have 1/0 gauge oxygen free copper wire from JL Audio, and I already had that laying around, so I decided to use that. It's pretty much the biggest wire you can go with, and it's not required. You can do, I think, a 2/0 depending on your electrical needs. If you have a lot of electronics, such as myself, I have a subwoofer and some amplifiers for my speakers, I should probably go with a larger gauge wire, just to give it the power that it needs. And also, if you're running 1/0 gauge wire, it's going to be pretty thick, so you have to take that into consideration on wiring it through to the front of the vehicle. But I have it already done, so obviously it's feasible. Just takes a little bit more work to slide it through, but nothing some lubricant on the end of the wire won't help with. So I have a ground wire that goes to the frame of the vehicle. This is the frame rail. I had to cut off this piece of this plastic here because I wanted to leave this in place because it supports the trunk and gives it a factory look as well. And the 0 gauge wire goes here, and I used a rivet nut, and you need a rivet nut toolkit in order to put that in there, and then you can easily bolt the ground wire into the frame of the vehicle. And it's super sturdy too, like it doesn't go anywhere. I know it's safe, that's not going to pop off. It's way better than drilling a hole and using like a self-tapping screw or things like that. That might work for other things, such as like these relays I have here for the fuel pumps. But for a fat wire like this and the ground for your vehicle, definitely want something a lot more secured. And everything is super tight. I bought this terminal here that's 1 1 gauge. So this goes to a circuit breaker here, which is 250 amps. This is like a $25 item. You can get on eBay. It's made by X Scorpion. And all you gotta do is press this red button and it disconnects the fuse and it takes power off to the vehicle, to the fuse box in the front. So I think that's pretty cool. Instead of having a fuse holder in here, and every time you blow your fuse you gotta take it apart and replace the fuse. So this circuit breaker is nice to have, and it's 250 amps, which is plenty for the car. And then all this other stuff is just for my fuel pumps, because I have 2 larger fuel pumps in here that are getting full power from the battery, and I have one for my amplifier that goes to my radio. And then so if you don't have any of that, then honestly this is gonna look much cleaner than what I have here. You'll just have the battery, the ground wire, and your power wire going to the engine bay. So if we go to the front of the vehicle, let me show you guys what I have here in the engine bay. I'm doing some other work in here, so don't mind. Took off my turbo manifold and coated all that, and just replacing all my lines with stainless steel, but that's another video. So you can see the factory battery used to go here, and now it's all empty space. Kind of cleans up the engine bay a little bit. I eventually plan to take the motor out and kind of do like a minor tuck and shave, and also repaint the engine bay in the factory white. Give it a nice look. But clears up a lot of space here. A lot of space. So there's the factory battery right there. And you can see I just have this wiring here. This is the 1 gauge wire that comes from the trunk. I fed it through this grommet here in the fender, and it goes out from the fender well. You got to take the fender liner out, drop it, and I feed the wire up through the top of the fender liner, up on top of there. And then there's a big grommet, a yellow grommet, that feeds wires into the cabin of the vehicle. And from there you're going to feed the power wire through there, and then you can feed it through the rest of the car to the back, and I'll show you that in a minute. So furthermore, on the front here, a lot of guys, including myself before doing this job, wondering what do we do with the factory ground and all that. So honestly, all you have to do is bring the power wire from the trunk to the front, and you have to put a 5/16 fitting on there, terminal, and it goes onto the fuse box like that. And there's the factory nut. So in here there's like a 10mm nut that you take off, and there's a stud for the fuse box. So you got to take the power wire, put it onto the stud, and then you got to take your starter wire, this black wire here. This used to go to the factory battery, and all you have to do is bend it backwards, sand down the terminal a little bit just to clean it up, put that onto the stud as well, and then with a couple washers and then a stud, you put the nut onto the stud and it secures it. So that's secure. For the factory ground, the way the ground works is there's a ground from the block that then goes to the frame rail, which is right there. And then from the frame rail would go to your battery. So if you're getting rid of the battery in the front, all you have to do is either one, you could just cut this piece of the ground off with the with a Dremel or something like that, just to get rid of that extra wire, or you can replace the whole ground from the block with your own wiring. So you can take like 4 gauge wiring, put on your own terminals. I believe it's 5/16 for this one as well. Take this piece off and just sand down the frame rail and then put your new ground wire on like that way. You could do that as well. The only problem is upgrading the alternator wire, because the alternator wire isn't a traditional power wire that goes to either your starter or your fuse box. It's one of these harnesses that are actually a bunch of other smaller wires that feeds through here, goes into this cover, through the radiators and the intercoolers, and comes out through here, and then, excuse all my tools, but it eventually goes into this harness that goes to the alternator. So I'm leaving those alone for now. I don't see any need to actually upgrade those to 1 gauge wiring, because you could upgrade the alternator to 4 gauge wiring. It's a little bit better, but it's absolutely not really required as long as the ground on your battery is the same or larger than the power wire that's going to the fuse box. That is what's important. So we're feeding it through to the fender, and it comes out under there, underneath the carpet and the side panel. So you're gonna have to remove the carpet and the side panel and the door trim. So this pops off really easily. It's all clipped, so you just pull up on it and it comes right out, and then you can feed the power wire through underneath the carpet. This you have to loosen up, just so you can put the power wire through the back. And as you can see, the power wire comes out right here. And once I bolt that seat down, you're not going to see any of it, and it's going to be super clean. So as I come to the back, where we started, the power wire goes underneath this black bracket, which is what everyone else is pretty much doing. So once it comes out to the bracket, then it feeds through your circuit breaker, and then it goes directly to your battery. So that is the battery relocation on a Supra. You could do it for any other car. The up in the engine bay might be a little bit different layout as far as the fuse box and the battery connections go, but this is how you do it. It's a lot simpler than it really looks. It's just time consuming with, you know, splicing the wires and cutting the wires and making sure they're the right lengths and getting all the fittings to work. So that is the most time consuming thing, but it's definitely not that difficult. But yeah, I can use the cover still. The subwoofer's in the way, but this lays down flat, and honestly it's super clean. You wouldn't even know it. So I hope this video helped you out with doing a battery relocation, and the link to purchase all the parts are listed down below. Thank you guys for watching, and hope you guys subscribe.